You were only clinging to me to climb higher." Those cruel words echoed in Maya Lopez's head as laughter filled the air. Her plain gray dress seemed to draw every harsh whisper in the room. She bit her lip, her hands shaking, then suddenly grabbed the arm of a man standing beside her. "I came with him," she said softly. The crowd's mocking laughter turned into quiet surprise. The air felt heavy as everyone realized who the man was: Alexander Grant, the billionaire host of the entire party. Maya stood frozen, her heart beating so loud she could hear it in her ears. Across the room, she saw Adrian Blake, her ex-boyfriend, leaning against a marble pillar. His smirk was sharp enough to cut glass. He looked perfect, expensive suit, shiny shoes, hair styled to perfection. He belonged here. Maya never did. The party took place at the top of a skyscraper, surrounded by glass walls showing the city lights far below. It was the kind of place that screamed money and power. Maya, in her simple, sleeveless gray dress bought from a department store, felt completely out of place. Her dark hair was tied back. No makeup, just her real face, plain but honest. Everywhere she looked, women sparkled in diamonds and designer gowns. Men wore suits that cost more than her rent. Their eyes cut into her, judging, whispering, laughing. Adrian stepped closer, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at her, still trying to fit in," he sneered. "That dress, Maya, did you borrow it from a thrift shop?" The crowd chuckled. A woman with bright red lips and a glittering dress whispered to her friend she probably rented it from a clearance rack. Her friend, a tall man with a Rolex that screamed insecurity, snorted. "I bet she snuck in. Who even invited her?" A woman wearing a fur stole and heavy diamond earrings stepped forward with fake sympathy. "Oh, Maya, you must feel so out of place," she said sweetly. "This isn't your world, darling. Why don't you just go?" The crowd laughed quietly. Maya's hand froze on her glass of water, the light shining through it. Slowly, she set the glass down. Her movements were calm, careful, like she was carving out a small space for herself in that cruel room. Her eyes met the woman, not with anger but steady strength. The woman's smile faded, her earrings swaying as she stepped back. Maya didn't need to speak, her silence was strong enough. She straightened her shoulders, remembering what her father always taught her: posture says more than words. In her mind, she saw him sitting at their old wooden table, his rough hands folded, his calm voice saying, "Stand tall, Maya, you don't have to shout to be heard." Now, surrounded by laughter and whispers, that lesson burned inside her. Then Ethan Cole, the Hale family's financial advisor, pushed through the crowd. He was in his 40s, his smile fake and oily. "I didn't even know she was invited," he said loudly. "Maya, you're out of your league. This isn't your little office break room." Laughter filled the air again. Maya's hand trembled slightly, ripples forming in her glass of water, but she said nothing. She just looked at Ethan, calm, unblinking, until he looked away. A young man in a velvet blazer leaned toward his date. "She's probably here to network," he said with a smirk. "Thinks she can charm her way into a job." His date laughed. "Charm? With that face, she's got nothing." Maya lifted her head and met the man's eyes. "Is that what you think charm is?" she asked quietly. Her voice was soft but clear enough to silence the room. The man blinked, unsure how to respond. The crowd shifted uneasily. Then Victoria Hale, Adrian's mother, stepped forward. She was around 50, her pearls glowing under the chandelier light. Her voice was cold and sharp. "That dress," she said slowly, "is so cheap it insults this party." Everyone went silent, waiting for Maya to crumble. A woman in a sparkling gown giggled and whispered to the man beside her, "She looks like she's here to clean the place." Maya's lips parted, but she stopped herself. She placed her glass gently on a nearby table and reached for a champagne flute from a passing waiter, not to drink but to steady her hands. "Careful, sweetheart," a man with a gold watch said loudly. "Those drinks aren't free. You sure you can afford it?" Laughter burst out again. Maya tightened her grip on the glass, then set it down untouched. She looked at the man. "I don't need to afford it," she said softly. The laughter died, the crowd went still. "Is that what you think?" she asked again, her calm voice cutting through the silence. Victoria blinked, caught off guard. The crowd watched, unsure what to do. Maya didn't say more, she just stood tall, her eyes steady. Then she turned slightly toward the man beside her. the one whose arm she had grabbed in panic earlier. "I came with him," she said again, this time firmly. The man, Alexander Grant, looked down at her. He was tall, in his 40s, his dark suit simple but elegant. His face was calm, unreadable. He didn't move away from her touch, just nodded once like it was perfectly natural. The crowd didn't believe her. A woman with heavy eyeliner laughed. "She's pretending," probably grabbed some random guy. Adrian smirked. "Pathetic," he said loudly. "You can't fool anyone." Another woman whispered to her friend, "She's got no shame clinging to him like that. Bet she doesn't even know his name." Maya met the woman's gaze and said quietly, "You seem to know a lot about desperation." The room went silent. The woman's face turned red. Alexander's hand moved gently to the small of Maya's back, steady and protective. His cold eyes swept over Adrian, making him falter for a moment. Maya stayed still, her hand resting on Alexander's arm. She didn't need to defend herself. Her mother once told her, "Silence can be stronger than shouting. Let them talk, your truth doesn't need their permission." Perfect. Here's part 2 of your story, rewritten in easy, emotional, and clear English, keeping every detail and meaning the same but making it smoother for storytelling. The room stayed frozen for a few seconds, then a voice from the back broke the silence. "Alexander Grant," someone whispered in disbelief. The murmurs spread like wildfire. Alexander Grant, the billionaire investor who almost never attended public events, was known for his privacy. People said he avoided crowds, avoided attention, avoided people. And yet, here he was with her. Adrian's confident smirk vanished. He stared at Alexander, realizing the man was not just rich but one of the most powerful names in the city. "This must be some mistake," Adrian muttered. But Alexander didn't speak. His calm face gave nothing away. His presence alone changed the air in the room. The same crowd that had laughed at Maya now watched her with uneasy curiosity. The woman with red lips who had mocked Maya's dress forced a nervous laugh. "We were just joking, Mr. Grant, you know how parties are." Alexander's eyes turned toward her, cold, unamused. She quickly looked away. Maya stood quietly, her heartbeat finally slowing down. She didn't plan this. She didn't even know who Alexander really was when she grabbed his arm out of panic. But now, standing beside him, she felt safe for the first time that evening. Adrian stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Come on, Maya, stop pretending. We both know you don't belong here," he said, his voice a mix of jealousy and anger. He looked at Alexander. "She used to clean tables at a small cafe. She's not who you think she is." The crowd gasped. Maya's chest tightened, but she didn't speak. She looked straight at Adrian, her eyes calm, almost sad. Alexander finally spoke. His voice was low but strong. "And what do you do, Mr. Blake?" he asked. Adrian blinked. I run investments. I have clients." Alexander nodded slowly. "So you earn your money, she earns hers, and yet you think her work makes her less." The room went dead silent. Adrian's face turned pale. Maya lowered her gaze. She remembered long nights at the cafe, mopping floors after closing, wiping tables while others laughed outside. She remembered saving every dollar to pay rent. She wasn't ashamed of it. Alexander looked at her now, his expression softening slightly. "You worked for what you have," he said quietly. "That's something most of them can't say." His words weren't meant for her alone, they were for everyone in that glittering room. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided eye contact. The woman in pearls, Victoria Hale, frowned. "Mr. Grant, surely you don't mean..." He interrupted her calmly. "I mean exactly that. You all came here to be seen." She came here and was seen anyway. Maya's eyes widened. She didn't expect him to defend her. She didn't even know how to respond. The whispers started again, but now they were different, confused, uncertain. A waiter passed by, offering drinks again. Alexander took one and handed it to Maya. His small gesture felt huge in the silent room. "Thank you," she said softly. Adrian clenched his jaw. "So this is it, you're just going to side with her?" Alexander turned to him. "I don't side with anyone, I just recognize strength when I see it." Adrian's hands curled into fists. "You don't know her like I do, she's just pretending to be something she's not." Maya's voice came out quiet but firm. No, Adrian, that was you. You pretended to be kind, to be loyal, to be human, and when you got what you wanted, you made sure I felt small. The crowd murmured again. Someone whispered, "Did you hear that?" Adrian's face flushed red with anger. "Don't act like you're innocent, Maya. You were nothing without me." Maya tilted her head, "And yet here I am standing, breathing, living without you." The words hit like a storm. Adrian froze. Alexander watched silently, impressed. He didn't interrupt. Maya took a slow breath and turned toward Victoria Hale. "You said my dress insults this party. Maybe it does, but at least I paid for it with my own money." She looked around the room. "How many of you can say the same about your lives?" No one spoke. A few people looked away, pretending to check their phones. The fake smiles had vanished. Alexander looked at her again, this time with quiet respect. "You handled that better than most would." Maya gave a faint smile. "I've had practice." He nodded. "It shows." Adrian muttered something under his breath and tried to walk away, but Alexander's voice stopped him. "You should apologize," he said. Adrian spun around. "For what?" "For telling the truth." Alexander's eyes hardened. "For mistaking cruelty for truth." Adrian froze again. The power in Alexander's calm voice made everyone hold their breath. Maya didn't move. She simply stood there, her small figure glowing under the chandelier light, no longer invisible. After a long pause, Adrian turned and left the hall. The door closed behind him, echoing in the silence. The crowd stayed quiet for several seconds before starting to murmur again, this time in admiration, not mockery. Victoria Hale sighed and shook her head. "Well," she said stiffly, "perhaps I misjudged you." Maya smiled politely. "It happens to everyone." Alexander gave her a small nod, signaling toward the exit. "Would you like some fresh air?" She nodded. "Please." They stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights glittering like stars beneath them. The night breeze brushed her hair. For the first time in hours, she could finally breathe. The night was quiet above the city. The lights below sparkled like fallen stars and the air smelled of rain. Maya stood at the edge of the balcony, her hands resting on the glass railing. The noise from the party had faded behind them, just muffled laughter and music now. She exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders drop. "I didn't mean to cause a scene," she said softly. Alexander glanced at her. "You didn't, they did." Maya gave a small, tired smile. "It's easier for them to laugh than to listen." Alexander didn't reply immediately. He took off his jacket and placed it gently over her shoulders. "You don't have to prove anything to them," he said quietly. She looked up at him. "You don't even know me." He smiled faintly. "I know what courage looks like. You showed it tonight." Maya looked down at the city lights again. "Courage," she repeated softly. "I just wanted to survive the night." Alexander folded his arms, studying her face. There was something honest about her, no mask, no greed, no act. "You work at the cafe near Hale Enterprises, don't you?" he asked. Maya nodded. "Yes, the one with the broken door that never closes properly." He smiled slightly. "I've been there. You served my assistant once. You didn't even look up when she gave you a large tip." Maya shrugged. "Tips don't change who I am, they just pay for groceries." Her calmness surprised him. He had met thousands of people who begged for attention, respect, or power, but she wasn't one of them. For a while, neither of them spoke. The wind moved through her hair, the city shimmered below. Alexander finally said, "I don't usually stay long at events like this, but tonight felt different." Maya smiled faintly. "Because someone almost spilled wine on your shoes." He chuckled. "No, because someone reminded them that value doesn't come from a name." Maya turned toward him, her expression gentle but serious. "Why did you stand up for me?" He thought for a moment. "Because I've seen what arrogance does to people. They forget what real strength looks like." He paused, then added quietly, "My mother lost her hearing when I was a child. People used to mock her too, but she never let them break her. She taught me that silence isn't weakness, it's power." Maya's eyes softened. "She sounds like someone I would have liked to meet." Yeah. Alexander nodded slowly. "You remind me of her." The words hung between them. Maya blinked, surprised, and looked away. No one ever said that before. He stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "Then maybe no one was paying attention." She looked up at him, the city lights reflected in her eyes. "You really think silence is power?" she asked. He nodded. "It is when it comes from dignity, not fear." Maya smiled quietly. "Then maybe I've had power all along." They both laughed softly. The tension of the night melted into something peaceful. After a few moments, Maya said, "People like them, they'll forget me tomorrow." Alexander looked at her. "I won't." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Maya didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being seen, really seen. For a long time, she'd lived in the background, quiet, invisible, surviving. But tonight, something inside her had changed. "I should go," she said finally. "I have an early shift tomorrow." Alexander nodded. "I'll walk you down." As they entered the elevator, she noticed his reflection beside hers in the mirrored wall, tall, calm, powerful, and her own, small but unbroken. The elevator doors opened into the silent lobby. The security guards straightened immediately when they saw Alexander, but he ignored them and turned to Maya. "Thank you," he said. Maya frowned lightly. "For what?" "For reminding me that grace doesn't come from wealth." She smiled softly. "And thank you for not walking away." He gave a slight nod. "If you ever need anything." She shook her head. "I don't want favors, I just want to be treated like a person." He smiled at that. "Fair enough." She turned to leave. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor. Just before reaching the door, she stopped and looked back. "You said your mother was deaf," she said. "Then I want you to tell her something for me." Alexander tilted his head curiously. "What?" Maya raised her hands and began to move them, slow, graceful motions that formed the words "thank you" in sign language. Alexander froze, watching in quiet awe. "She taught you that silence is power," Maya said softly, "so this is my way of saying thank you to both of you." He smiled, not his usual polite smile, but something real, something that reached his eyes. "I'll tell her," he said quietly, "and she'll understand." Maya nodded. "Good night, Mr. Grant." He watched as she walked out into the cool night air, a simple girl in a gray dress, disappearing into the city lights. Inside the silent hall above them, people still whispered about her. But down here, under the moonlight, Maya Lopez wasn't just the shy waitress anymore. She was a woman who stood tall in a world that tried to make her small. And Alexander Grant, the man everyone feared, couldn't stop thinking about the girl who didn't need diamonds or fame to shine.